It's a combination of if nothing changes, but also, you can't solve a problem with the same thinking that created it. So you need to bring a new level of thinking to everything that you do.
Hello and welcome to the Goals Based Advice Podcast, where I have conversations with pioneers of the new world of financial advice. I'm your host, Fraser Jack. I want to thank you so much for tuning in. I'd also like to thank our supporting partner, Advice Intelligence, for powering this podcast. And if you're enjoying this show, then please help me spread the word. Find your colleagues that don't currently listen to podcasts and teach them how you find and listen to your favorite shows. I would also love it if you could leave me a review on your podcast platform. In this episode, I chat with legendary business coach, super nice guy, and returning guest, Michael Back. In his business, Human to Human, he helps facilitate advice businesses set and track towards their own goals. In our chat, we cover off on the business process Google uses to set goals, how it can be applied to small business, and how Michael uses it to help financial advice businesses grow. We also discuss what Michael sees as a must-do for advisors in 2020 and beyond, which is quantitative before and after data on your clients' feelings, the way they were feeling before your meeting and after, so you can produce tangible statistics on the value of your advice. So if you or any of your colleagues want to make sure your business planning process is world-class, then this episode is a must. If you're looking for the show notes and links discussed in this episode, which is number 107, go to www.adviceintelligence.com/resources. Let's hit play now on my chat with Michael. Welcome back to the Goals Based Advice Podcast show. Michael Back.
We're 5 seconds in and we've already got a last name pun. Well played. Well done.
Welcome back, Michael.
Yeah, it's cool.
Oh, sorry, I got your name in the wrong way.
No, it's really cool to be given a second invitation.
So I think you should become a regular, because every time I talk, we could just like talk, and you come up with all these amazing gold, and I think, oh, that'd be good if we recorded that.
I'd love to be regular. Yeah, a lot of the podcasts I listen to where there's regulars, it's nice to just hear different perspectives from them and go deeper on things they've said. And yeah, I really enjoy that. So I'd be very happy to be a regular.
Fantastic. You heard it here. Now you have to do it. Damn it. So it's 2020. It's a new decade.
Yes, it is. It's
pretty incredible to think, and there's a lot going on. What have you been doing since we last chatted?
Well, I think it's pretty much 12 months since I did my first episode, which over a coffee this morning, you told me that was it 15 months you've done 100 episodes?
Yes. 15,
firstly, kudos for that. That's unbelievable.
Thanks.
That's incredible. But yeah, I'd say the theme of that 12 months for me has been going from, so in the E-Myth, they talk about a great technician who had an entrepreneurial seizure. And the idea being, you get these skills, you go, I'm going to go start a business, but then you just act like the doer, and you soon realize that's not the best way to scale a business. So the theme for me over the last 12 months has been putting my business owner pants on and going, I'm actually owning a business here, and I need to think more strategically and not just do good work for clients and help them, but also make sure that my business is growing at the same time. So that's taken me to some wonderful places this year. I've done a lot more presenting. I've done a lot more articles. So I've been running for the IFA magazine, which has been really cool. And even just my own social media, recording videos, just creating versions of value from my IP, which has been really, really cool. And I've really enjoyed that process. Yeah,
I can't help but notice that some of the stuff that you're doing in your personal business, it would be the same stuff you'd be telling your clients to do.
Exactly. And that's the thing is it's about practicing what I preach. And that's, something that has never sat well with me is businesses who, like an SEO business who say, we'll get you to the top of Google. And then you type in, SEO Brisbane, and they're not even on the first page. You're like, come on, why are you telling me that this is important if clearly you're either not good at it or you just haven't done it yourself? In my case, I think, I was running around telling a lot of people what I think they should be doing in their business, and it's been hopefully valuable to them. But yeah, this was a year where it was time for me to do more of it myself. So I'm really happy with how that's played out this year. It's been awesome.
That's a really good point that we all make around working in the business versus on the business, and the time spent. And if you don't work on your own, then you don't grow, I suppose.
That's exactly right. And yeah, it's this whole thing of, what does Brene Brown say? There's a reason why on the airplane they say fit your own oxygen mask before assisting other passengers. And so, the business equivalent of that is that you're running around keeping your team happy and your clients happy. But if you're not at least giving yourself a basic amount of attention and care and growth, there won't be a business in 5-10 years time. So yeah, it can feel a little bit selfish, but if you really play it out, it's probably the most selfless thing you can do.
Yeah, fair enough. Now, your business, of course, is helping other financial advisors and
Yes.
businesses. How have you been helping them?
Yeah, so that's been an evolving concept, which has been really cool. In the past, I was, I suppose, known for social media and digital, and got the glasses, so had a reputation as being the young nerdy guy who can kind of work out how this tech stuff plays out. It's still a big part of what I do for businesses, but I think since starting my own business, it's really been about just taking a step back and going, okay, so what are the problems that my clients are facing and how can I help solve them? So I'd say my business has evolved more to being just a business coach, I would say. I don't mean just in terms of minimizing what that is, but having a more holistic approach to going, you're a really good business and you want to be a great business. So whether I am 100% responsible for delivering all the things that are going to take you from good to great doesn't really matter, as long as I help you have the focus and make better decisions and have some accountability along the way. So yeah, the analogy I like to use is it's like being the conductor of the orchestra. I can play keyboard and play a little bit of trumpet. I don't play all the instruments, but as long as I'm the conductor and I can keep other people on track and help the business move towards a shared vision, that will ultimately mean that they're more successful.
Yeah. Now I picked out of that sentence, I'm going to pick the making better decisions comment out of it. How do we make better decisions as, I guess, humans, as businesses, and help our clients make better decisions?
There's this wonderful tool that I came across once called a Magic 8 Ball. You just ask it a question, you shake it, it just gives you your answer.
Fantastic.
Yeah, so
It's simple.
It's going to be a pretty short podcast, but that's my advice. I think everyone just needs to buy a Magic 8 Ball.
Can we have one for financial services industry?
Yeah.
Give them out to everybody. That would be great.
Yeah, what a great idea. Just helping people make financial decisions significantly affecting their future with an 8 ball. I like it. No, so what was the question again?
Decision-making process, I guess, or concepts around how do we as human beings make decisions and what should we be doing?
Yeah, look, there's no silver bullet with stuff like this, right? I suppose taking it to a business context, I find that every business that I've ever worked with, particularly at the start, their work ethic is without question. Everyone is working hard. Everyone's putting in long hours. The frustration is often that hard work hasn't necessarily generated results. And sometimes that's a bit of an impatience where it's like, no, you're doing all the right things. Just this is the journey of business. This is the J curve. Just keep going. But at other times, it's not so much about the amount of effort as much as the direction of effort. And so your question around how do we make better decisions is, I think, moment by moment in business, we're making decisions about what should I be focusing on? What do I do next? What do I need to achieve today, this week, this month, this year? And without what I'd call a North Star, so without like an end point where it's like, well, here's what we're all trying to achieve here, it's almost impossible to make those better decisions. So I'd say the first step in either personally making better decisions or having a team that make better decisions, because you can't make them for them all the time, you need to empower them to make great decisions, is helping them realize what the point of all of this is and what's important to the business. So, we all want to grow our businesses, or at least the vast majority of us want to grow our businesses, but the way that a business is going to grow varies significantly business to business, right? Sometimes it's about reducing costs, sometimes about efficiency, sometimes it's about leads, sometimes it's about conversion, sometimes we're actually doing all those things well, but we just can't keep clients. So the levers of growth, as I'd call them, vary, but you just want to make sure that your team have the right version of here's what we need to be focusing on. So every minute, every day, every week, every year, they're making better decisions to help get closer to that.
Sounds very much like you're talking goals-based advice, as in you're saying focus on something, the long-term outcome of what you're actually trying to achieve here, not just the short-term, what's this going to do for me today, tomorrow, and the next day.
That's it. The financial advisors listening to this would inherently know that if you have a savings goal for a client, they're going to make better decisions about what they do with their money on the weekend. If that goal is really important to them, they'll make some sacrifices. So it's exactly the same in business. I think it's just important that we, as leaders of businesses, make sure that our team from the bottom up have that connection to what success looks like. Yeah, so all those right behaviors happen.
So you say the bottom up, like, are you talking, and you mentioned it in the last sentence as well, you talked about all the staff making the right decisions. And I know that a lot of your work you do is around culture. It's around making sure that every single person in the business is included. You're not just talking to leaders. You're basically trying to empower all staff to be leaders within their own personalities and bringing those out. So am I right there? A lot of your stuff that you do with your businesses is around that, the whole of the business, not just the leader?
Yeah, absolutely. I think, it can be a pretty lonely place at the top of a business. But, in a practical sense, there's only so much you can do. There's only so many hours in the day. And, the best businesses in the world have ways to ensure that their whole team are spending their time wisely and adding as much value as possible. And, I'm a huge fan of Seth Godin, one of my absolute, online mentors. I'd love him to be a physical mentor, but I've never met him.
He's coming on the show, did you know?
Oh my gosh.
No, he's not.
Oh
he's
gosh.
not.
I will, I'll hold your cables during that one. But yeah, he talks a lot about the future of work and what's changing. And, the one that really hit me between the eyes and like, without trying to exaggerate, literally changed my life was in his book called Linchpin, which, for any of you out there with support teams who you want to step up more and own their value and bring more to the table in your business, it's a must read. A lot of my client teams, as soon as they hire a new team member, I will buy that book and send it to them. It's just that important. But the whole concept is that anything that can be documented, like a job description, and any job that can be broken down into processes and systems is either going to be automated or outsourced, because there's a very defined set of tasks, and you can either train a computer or a person to do them, and so that role will become redundant. So if you want to stay relevant as an employee or in business, you need to do things that can't be necessarily summarized in a Word doc or solve problems that haven't been solved before. And so the level of thinking that needs to come into business now for everyone, but particularly support team members who perhaps haven't been told through the education system that they need to think this way, is to be brave and to take risks and to leave their comfort zone and to, dance with the resistance, as Seth would say. So, you've got that voice in your head saying, this is impossible, we can't do this, I've never done this before. And to not just fight that or ignore it or, just silence it through responding to all your emails and feeling like you've done a good day's work, but actually leaning into that and, ensuring that like every single year of your career, you're looking back and going, I've done things I've never done before, but my star has risen and my value to the business has grown. So I really think that's the big opportunity for many businesses out there, is if you've got a team that for the next 1, 2, 3 years are going to do things that are roughly similar to what they've done in the past, your business is probably going to struggle. Because there's other businesses out there who are constantly lifting the bar, redefining what that is. And we've all seen industries where that's happened, that businesses that were doing well all of a sudden stop doing well. And so, it's a combination of if nothing changes, but also, you can't solve a problem with the same thinking that created it. So you need to bring a new level of thinking to everything that you do.
Yeah. What are some of the strategies that you use or your clients use to bring forward those opinions and those ideas of those people who aren't in the leadership positions of the business?
Yeah. So for a couple of years, I've been following the way that Google set goals. It's called the OKR system. And before I start, I don't want to come across as someone who's like, every single business should be using this system. I feel like the vast majority of businesses would greatly benefit from using it, but there are variants of this. Like there's a book called The Rockefeller Habits, which is roughly similar, but they're essentially operating systems for your business where you have a shared focus on what's important and then a series of actions that help lead to that. So, but the way I do it is through OKRs. So the OKR framework, it was invented by a dude in the 70s called Andy Grove, which any business nerds out there, he's regarded as one of the greatest managers of all time from Intel. He wrote a book on it, and the book actually didn't really take off or have that much success. It was just this legendary manager had this great idea, rolled it out at Intel, it worked really well, but it wasn't something that the rest of the world really knew about. And it was in the 90s where a dude called John Doerr, who you may have heard of him before, legendary venture capitalist, multi-billionaire, was one of the advisors to Obama on how do we reverse this economic downturn. Just a legend of business growth and economic prosperity. He was working for a company called Kleiner Perkins, and that they were venture capitalists to Google. Now, these two dudes called Serge and Larry, who were these crazy guys who were like, we want to take over the world and we just don't know how to run a business. And that was when John, who had worked with Andy back at Intel, went, well, actually, I've got this kind of crazy idea from 25 years ago called OKRs. And if you've got no other alternative, I say we just give it a crack. And he gave it a crack. And I mean, the rest is history when it comes to Google. Intel still use it to this day. Not sure if they kept using it or if they've started using it again since Google did, but Spotify, LinkedIn, Airbnb, like some of the best businesses in the world are using OKRs as the way that they align the people in their team to a bigger version of success and to the version of success that they're looking to achieve. And so I'd been like looking at this for a while, and I'd been kind of taking elements of it and building it into my client businesses and my relationships. But it was earlier in the year, I was planning an offsite with one of my clients, Corey Wassell, down at Verse Wealth in Melbourne. And he stumbled upon a version of OKRs that this guy in America called Philippe Castro had created, which was pretty much, here's how Google do it, but I've now broken it down for a small business. And it was just incredible. Like he had this 50-page ebook. For all of you out there, we'll put the link in the show notes. I highly encourage you to read it. But it was one of those moments where you read it and I was just like, yeah, my client relationships are never going to be the same again after reading that. It was just, you know when you've been playing with something and using it for a while and then you just see a version of it that you go, oh, it's so much simpler than what I've been doing and I can just automatically know that this will work. So we rolled it out at Verse this year. They've had stunning success with it. And since then, I've rolled it out with all my client businesses and every single one of them has had a great success story. Now, they're all different success stories, but it has worked so well in all of those businesses. And, going back to your original question, I know I went on a bit of a tangent there, but the whole concept is this is business planning that can happen in maximum 6 hours, but usually about 4 hours based on a series of 90-day plans. And it isn't decision-making that comes from the top and is just passed on to people in the business going, here's what we're doing now, this is important. It is top down, bottom up, it's collaborative. It's basically let's get the whole team involved in deciding what we as a business are focusing on with the knowledge of why that's important.
Yeah. So I'm just going to ask a quick question around this. Is this 4 hours a quarter for the team?
Yeah, good question. You could probably, so you probably need let's say a day. It wouldn't be 8 hours, but you need a day at the start of the year to decide what the year looks like. And then you just reset that in probably 4 hours. It can be less sometimes. Depends how many OKRs, and I'll explain what OKR stands for in a sec. But yeah, it'll be 4 hours every quarter. Probably every month, you probably need about an hour to check in on it. So yeah, we're really talking, if you want to add it all up, what's that, 12 hours plus a day plus 12. So you're probably looking at like 30 hours over the course of the year to keep you on track to this.
But having the structure behind how those 30 hours are spent.
Oh, that absolutely. And I mean, yeah, so look, the O in OKR stands for objectives. So these are like bigger picture versions of what we want success to look like this year. So common ones that I see across businesses are build a remarkable client experience or a world-class client experience. Might be build a well-oiled machine. Some businesses have things along the lines of become a financial powerhouse. So, you can see that the last one there was growth. The well-oiled machine's about, efficiency and back office. Client experience is about how we're treating clients, how we, building word of mouth and retaining our clients. The idea here, though, isn't that they're tangible and you know what they're like, but they're not necessarily achievable. So, as you know, with most things, it's not like you go, oh, we've got a well-oiled machine. We don't need to do anything. Like there's always better versions of a well-oiled machine that you can build. And there's always another level of your client experience. But the idea is it's very clear what we're trying to achieve, but it's got to have some energy and it's got to be exciting to the team.
So this is your direction, your North Star you talked about?
That's exactly right.
Yep.
And so, at the start of the year, we decide what that is across a bunch of areas. But then over 90 days, you might go, you know what? We're doing pretty well on the growth side. The client experience is pretty good. We're getting some really great numbers in our surveys. So really, I think where we're struggling now is efficiency. So for the next 90 days, our sole focus will be, say, the well-oiled machine, OKR.
Yep.
So that's the O, but there's no point having these if you can't measure them. So that's where the KRs, which stands for key results, fall underneath. And they are specific numbers that are 100% measurable, 100% verifiable, that will help us know if we're on track to achieving our objectives or not.
And how hard are they to come up with?
That's probably the bit where I would say that's where you need to come up with them at a strategic level, maybe bounce them off key people in the team whose opinion you really, that you value. But, ideally you want to get the OKRs in a format where they're pretty much good to go, and then use the team to brainstorm the actions that will help you achieve that.
Yep.
So yeah, but there's some common ones which, with the businesses I work with, I'll help shortcut, here's the types of measurements, which ones are most important. They can be quite easy because often you come up with an objective because there's a pain. So let's go back to the well-oiled machine. If you go, right, we want to build our business to be a well-oiled machine, you can instantly in the team go, where isn't it a well-oiled machine? Where do things get stuck? What are the roadblocks? What's taking too long? People say things like implementation, great. Well, we need to, how long is implementation taking now? How long do we want it to take? Cool. That's our key result, is to reduce average implementation time from 6 weeks to 3 weeks, something along those lines. So yeah, where there's a pain involved, it's pretty easy to come up with the key results. When it's more aspirational, that's probably where you need to do a little bit more thinking. But often where I start with businesses is they go, yeah, look, it'd be nice, but we're not measuring those things. So that's where often the first action in the first 90-day cycle is, let's work out how to start measuring retention, conversion, all those things which are so important to be measuring in business.
And do you go into milestones for that?
So that's where the monthly and quarterly check-in comes in. So the usually monthly would be too often for measuring along the way. It's probably just too short a cycle, but every 90 days. So you're setting your key results at a 12-month level. You're going over the next 12 months, we want to achieve that. And then you check in every 90 days to go, are we on track?
Yep.
Etc. And, this is where, I think going back to your earlier point around what the future of an employee mindset needs to be. I think that every culture that we're seeing in the world thrive, and the businesses that are growing and just, reaching heights we never thought possible, they all have, and we kind of inherently understand this, they have this culture of experimentation. They've got this culture of, look, we're not sure, but we're reasonably smart, so we can make some pretty strong hypotheses on this. But there's almost this destigmatization of failure. And we know this, that in the startup world, but also some of the most successful businesses, is that they try things and they don't work and they don't dwell on it. They just kind of roll forward and try again. And I think most businesses understand this, but then building a bridge between that and what you're doing day to day is hard. And you see, team members who aren't taking risks or aren't making decisions, and they're always defaulting to the leader. What do you think? And they're waiting to receive, instructions on what to do rather than just, coming up with an educated decision and doing it themselves. And, a lot of that is because they haven't had to do it before. But like I alluded to before, a lot of it's the education system, which tells us that we'll be told what to do. We'll be told there's a syllabus. We'll know exactly what's expected of us. And so as long as we just follow that bouncing ball, we'll be successful, and our parents will pat us on the back and say, well done for getting a good mark. But the big bad world of business isn't like that anymore. So yeah, we need to really change our thinking. And that's where, this system is a great bridge, because it gives people accountability for projects that we don't know if they work. And after 90 days, we go, you know what, we thought that would help our conversion. This project that we're working on, it hasn't. But that's okay. What have we learned? Cool. We've learned a lot through that. So what are we going to do differently next 90 days? And over time, those hypotheses get better and better informed through data, because you're putting stuff out there and seeing whether it works or not. And so, the quality of those actions get better as well.
It also feels to me that with these key metrics, if they're just kept within the management structure, or they're only focused on in the management meeting or whatever it might be, then they get lost in the process. But having these all staff members understand the metrics and how they're tracking.
Yes.
And when, like you said, when you're making those small decisions going forward, they're across the actual metrics, and they don't have to be numbers about, like whatever, they have to be like numbers about profits or anything like that. It could just be, it's just the metrics, right?
Yeah, that's it. I call them the levers, because it's literally just these things that if they all happen, success is guaranteed, profit will happen, revenue will happen, whatever those bigger metrics are. But yeah, it's almost the inputs to drive the right outputs.
Yep. And in my opinion, they should be, goals under management, or goals.
Yeah.
The amount of goals that we're helping solve for each client should be a big part of it. But I guess it's different for every business.
Yeah, that's exactly right. And I think as well, like, one of the biggest, so something that I'm really proud of and that I'll never stop doing is I always want to have a really deep connection to the leaders in the business, but also the rest of the team. And I'm fortunate because I used to be a paraplanner. God bless all the paraplanners out there. I think you're heroes. It wasn't for me, but I hit this point in my mid-20s where I was like, you know what, like my career is not heading in the direction I want it to, and I need to make some pretty big decisions and try some different things in order to get a different outcome. And that has seen me, completely change careers within the industry, seen me help set up a business in Brisbane. It's now seen me start my own business, but I'm still really connected to that journey of what it's like to be an employee. Whereas I think, after you've been a leader or an owner of a business for 20, 30 years, you kind of forget what life was like. So my point here is that I'm really connected to, and I don't like saying the top and the bottom because a lot of structures these days are very flat, but I'm connected to people at all levels of a business. And the biggest gripe that business owners have is that, their team aren't thinking commercially enough, that they're not focused enough on the right things. But that's because they might not have grown up around business and understand what, they just think that there's this big pile of money sitting in a bank account and they get their pay, and they're not seeing the connection between revenue coming in and costs and salary and all those things. So this is the bridge, right? It's like the way that business owners go, well, here are the things that are really important to me. So let's break that down into practical action. That means you're focusing on the right things. But also like it's almost like a great empathy tool, because it just means that the people at the top can appreciate what the people at other levels of the business think and feel, and how they see success and where they see the challenges in the business. But then also the people at all levels of the business can understand what's required to make sure that the business just is more and more successful every year.
This is an interesting, I'm going to go off on a bit of a tangent. We'll go down a rabbit hole here.
Let's do it.
Let's talk about this concept of the org chart, right? The top and the bottom. I've always lived by the process that, like, your client's at the top, and the very first person that they speak to, or the key point of contact, if that's the person answering the telephone or sending the messages or whatever it might be, that's the next person at the top. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And not the manager or the shareholder or the owner or whatever, or the person with the most letters after their name.
Yes.
It's the client, then the people who they have the most contact with, and then from there, sort of, I guess, down from there, not up from there,
I've never thought of it that way, but it's so true, and it's so consistent with the way that a system like this plays out.
Yep. Yeah, so essentially it's just going, okay, this is the most important person, our client, they're at the top. And then whoever, answers the phone, or whoever welcomes them at the door, or whoever helps produce their information.
Yeah.
And everybody along the process then sort of filters down to the person who they would spend the least time with,
yeah.
or whatever it might be.
Yeah.
Because and you see it on everyone's website, right? Everyone's website, it's a hierarchy of status on there. And it's kind of like, well, that's really self-directed.
Yeah.
In a way.
Yeah.
But it's the way it's always been done.
That's right.
Instead of putting actually who's looking at the website. The client or the possible client, and who would be the most important person for them to get hold of or talk to.
100%. Yeah.
Anyway, that's just a
I love
theory.
it. I think it's it's a really cool way of, because a lot of the work I do, and probably like one of my known flaws in the industry, is around the client experience. And when you really break it down, like if you don't have a great client experience, you don't have a great business. Like, it is so integral to everything you're doing. And so, the best businesses in our industry and in most industries, I'd say all industries, I can't think of one that it doesn't apply, put the client at the center of everything they do. And, the classic case I see is that some excited leader or manager or just an advisor in a business goes to, say, the AFA conference or the FPA conference and FPA Congress. Sorry for the FPA people out there. And they will see an idea, they'll see some tech tool, and they'll be like, oh, yeah, we just saw this great session on video, and we've just got to start doing more videos. And the team just kind of cringe going, right, another thing on the list. And So if you look at the concept of video, like, do I think video is a valuable tool for businesses? Yes, but there's an asterisk. It's like, well, it depends. Depends what your problems are. Depends what you're struggling with. It depends where you want to take your business in the next 12 months. And that's probably been the biggest shift in me since I've gone out on my own, is that, I think social media is one of the most amazing tools that businesses have at their disposal. Asterisk.
It's a tool.
It's a tool.
Yeah.
That's right. It's not a strategy. And so the issue with, say the person in the business coming to the team and going, we got to start doing more of this, is that there's a couple of issues. The first is it lacks context. It's like, well, it's a good idea, but is it the right idea based on exactly where we're at? But the subtext of that is, a lot of the time, employees and team members are very aware of what the problems are in a business, and they hear an idea like that and go, why the hell are we screwing around with video when we can't even implement advice in less than 2 months? But there's no avenue, there's no follow through. Like, the whole team are aware that that's a problem, but there's no sharp focus and decisive action taken towards it. And so we kind of have all these problems that are in our business, and they sit there, but they're kind of fuzzy, because we know if we bring them into focus, we've got to do something about them, and that's a bit overwhelming. So a system like this is like saying, well, look, video might be a good idea, but let's run it through the test, because we are agreeing through OKRs what's important to us, what metrics we're trying to change, what our problems are that we need to solve in the next 90 days. If video is going to help us achieve one of those things, absolutely, let's throw it on the list. But if it is just one of these things which is a good idea, but maybe for next quarter or next year, great, let's park it. It's there. We acknowledge that it may be useful, but right now we've agreed as a team that this isn't useful. That's a much healthier conversation.
Yeah, it's really around making sure that the foundations are in place, isn't it? We're doing the things that we need to do to get the business strong.
That's exactly
right. And then we'll do the shiny stuff.
Yes, that's right. And so, you talk about the first question that you asked was around decisions. That's how you make better decisions, is you have better conversations because you've asked better questions from the outset.
Yep. Yep, fantastic. And so the program, the OKR, the K in the R is key results?
Yes.
Is there an S, or is it?
No, that's just the plural. Yes, the OKR system.
Objective, key results.
Yes, and then so you've got your key results, and as a team you go, right, so for the next 90 days we're focusing on this. Then it's about brainstorming actions.
Yep.
So this isn't getting into the minutiae of a project plan. It's what are the things that we need to start doing or change or stop doing, or just what are the 90-day behavioral changes or things that we've got to start focusing on in order to achieve those key results.
Yep.
So the way I suggest doing that is you sit with your team, 10 minutes, get them to come up with as many ideas for shifting those numbers, those key results, as they can. One idea per Post-it note. For those of you who want to give this a crack yourself, I would always recommend 3M high stick Post-it notes because they don't fall off the wall. And then you've got all these ideas up on the wall. Obviously, they're not all achievable within 90 days. So then it becomes about the team standing up around there and just deciding which ones are just a no-brainer, like awesome idea, not that hard to implement, let's get that done. Which ones are, it's a great idea, but we're not going to do that in 90 days, or it's probably just a bit misguided, now's not the right time. And then you have discussions around the other ones and kind of filter them into the 90 days or filter them out. Now, it's really good exercise, though, because when you're filtering stuff out, it's not to say that will never be a good idea. You still document that, bring that back in your next 90-day sprint when you're trying to shift those same key results. But you essentially just get a list of, we've agreed that this is what we think is practical in the next 90 days across the team to achieve. And as you would be aware, when you get people into that environment where the phone's off, the computer's shut down, as I've discovered recently, though, you've also got to ask people to take their Apple Watches off, because you get rid of all tech and they're still getting SMSs on their watch. It's like, gosh, where's this going to end? But you get them in that environment that there's this kind of detachment from reality and a bit of optimism, and that's really essential for them to come up with great solutions to these problems that businesses are trying to solve. But sometimes we lose a bit of practicality. So we go, yeah, we can achieve all that in 90 days. And so what had happened a couple of times was, a month in, we're like, we really bit off more than we can chew. So what I now build in, and I'd suggest anyone out there who wants to give this a crack, builds in is 1 week later or even a few days later, give yourself a weekend, come back and go, all right, we said we could achieve all this in 9 days. Is this really realistic? Is there one or two things we can take off this list? Because we always overestimate what we can achieve in a small amount of time.
How important is the location, as in finding a neutral space, a creative space, maybe not your workspace, for doing these sessions?
Great question. I'm going to give an answer which sounds really vague, which is if you can do it, it would be hugely beneficial. I think environment is so important. And, even if you're doing this and people are sitting at their desk, just the fact they're on the same chair that they're at day to day and with the same surroundings, they're going to have a similar level of thinking. But a problem I see in a lot of businesses is things like that. It's like video. They go, oh, but I don't have a good backdrop. Well, it's still better to do a video with a boring backdrop than no video. And I'd say that with the OKRs is if you can find a nice space. And actually, I spoke to a business yesterday who use a referral partner's office for their OKR days. I mean, that's a quick win. If you've got other businesses, you can just do a little swap. And even just that shift in environment where it's like, we're in a new office, we got coffee from a different shop on the way up this morning, we're going to go somewhere different for lunch. Even that can shift your mindset. But if you don't have another space to go to take your team to, doesn't matter. It's still going to be better to do it than not to do it.
Yeah, and I think getting creative, if you don't have to pay for a space, but
yes,
you can certainly be creative.
Yes,
finding out, especially this time of the year in the summer, you can find an outdoor zone.
Yeah, well, this may be the bit of the interview where everyone thinks that I'm a weird hippie and a bit woo-woo. But I went to Tony Robbins' conference last year with one of my clients, and I got a lot out of the content. But the best thing that I really took out of it was the power of an immersive experience. So, like, Tony Robbins deliberately in his auditoriums dials the temperature down to about 18, which, they say 23 is the comfortable level. So it's cold. So you're alert. You don't go for an hour and then have a break. He sometimes takes you 5, 6, 7 hours without a break. Minimal food on the outside. Like, it's an uncomfortable experience, but it's an immersive experience. And it definitely takes you mentally to places that you don't usually go. And so, with one of my beautiful clients who let me treat them like guinea pigs, we took something that I had learnt on a retreat that I went to this year around finding flow, which is around deep breathing. And Wim Hof is like the champion. He's like that crazy dude. The Iceman, yeah. Holds his breath for 5 minutes underwater, or maybe 10. I'm not sure. It's a lot. It's insane. And climbed Everest just wearing a pair of shorts. And it's all about the power of breathing. And
no shoes, wasn't it?
Yeah, no shoes. Yeah, he's just a madman. He's a beautiful madman. But we actually were doing just a deep breathing exercise. I mean, it's kind of like a meditation, but it's just 2 minutes of really deep breathing, and then you just let it out, and then you just sit still for a minute. We did that in between OKR brainstorms. And the reason we did that was by the end of that 90-day reset in the previous quarter, energy levels were very low. Everyone's like, I'm tired. And that feeling, that brain fuzz of, I've just been thinking too much, of making a lot of decisions. When you operate strategically, you don't have 8 hours of energy. So we brought the breathing in. Like, let's just give this a crack and see if we just do a little reset in between sessions, whether that makes a difference. It made a huge difference. I mean, someone in the team said, I could do that whole day again. Now I'm feeling so energized. And that was the end of the day. And so things like that, now every business has a different appetite for that. Some of the younger startup businesses will probably jump on that. Some of the more established businesses will go, yeah, can't see us doing Wim Hof breathing in our boardroom. But the principle is like, you got to bring some different energy and ideas into these sessions in order to get a different outcome.
And that could be easier transition for people to make if they weren't in their existing environment where they always do what they always do.
That's exactly right. And I mean, this is the whole principle behind the Wim Hof breathing. I did not expect our interview to go into this space, by the way. But the whole principle is that like everyone can breathe. Everyone does breathe, just breathe better. And so it really isn't one of these things where you're like, I don't know how to meditate or I don't know how to do this. It's like, it is something that's quite accessible to everyone.
Have you seen the sports teams doing it now? They get together in a huddle and they do the breathing. And, yeah.
That's it. I mean, some of it could be a placebo effect, but as you know, with the placebo effect, even when people were told that they were taking a placebo, it still makes a difference. So, if you're trying to get an outcome, whether it's a placebo or not, it still kind of works.
Yeah, well, our brains crave oxygen, so it's got to work, right?
We should do a deep breathing meditation right now just to make it the most boring 10 minutes in podcast history.
Do you want to teach people how to do it?
Yeah.
Is that what you're saying? Well, yeah, let's give a quick version. So if somebody wants to fast forward through the breathing, they can.
Yeah,
But
that's it. Yeah.
if you're interested in knowing how
Yeah.
to reset your brain,
Yes.
take us away.
That forward 30 seconds, just hit that 20 times and then you'll get to the end of the meditation.
Could we do a short version? How would you do it?
It starts with 30 to 40. And Wim is so funny. Like I did one of his on YouTube. Well, I'd learned how to do it myself, and then it's kind of like learning how to use the camera, then reading the manual. I went, I'm going to listen to how he said it. And he said something really great. He's like, if you're focusing on the number of breaths, don't focus on the number. Just keep breathing. And so that was so when I say 30 to 40, just do it to a point where you are feeling an effect.
Yeah.
You should be sitting down, not driving, because you can feel lightheaded. Some people have really interesting reactions to the deep breathing. They get cold extremities. They start twitching.
Yep.
I went through a 45-minute version of the deep breathing meditation at that flow retreat, and it was crazy. Some of the reactions people were having.
Doesn't it? He'll do a 2 or 3 day thing.
Yeah. No, it's mental. But we're doing the light version. It's not going to be that crazy, but you should just be in a place where you're not driving. And you literally just breathe. Wim, I think he's Dutch, and he says fully in, and then out. But you don't go fully out. So that's what he always says, not fully out, just fully in.
Yeah.
So you go fully in till you feel that breath in your belly. So it even helps to put your hands on your belly.
Yeah.
Your tummy comes out. If you've had too many beers around Christmas, it's very easy to know if your tummy's coming out.
Too much Christmas pudding.
Yes, but you don't let it fully out. So you do that. So what I just did, like that. So hopefully the listeners can hear that that's a very deep breath, but then a tiny out, or just enough of an out.
Yep.
You do that in a circular motion. So you don't pause in between. You just keep doing that 30 to 40 times. I usually do it until I feel a bit lightheaded. It just feels like you're a bit tipsy.
Yep.
On the last one, you just take one extra breath. So your last breath's like a really deep in.
So you completely filled your lungs. There's nothing left.
And then you sit. So you've done 30 to 40. You might be feeling a bit lightheaded, but you might have another reaction. But roughly 2 minutes, and then you just sit in that for as long as you can. So you've breathed out. You're not holding your breath. You're just dead silent, sitting in that. You get better at it over time as you start oxygenating your brain, but you usually can get to about 1.5 minutes or 2 minutes without taking another breath in, which is really surprising to me because I'm not a particularly fit guy. But it's just amazing when you oxygenate your brain that much, how just how much oxygen you store up. Yeah, the residual, exactly. You then get to a point where you start going, oh, I'm going to need to breathe soon. Particularly when you're starting out, Wim says, don't be a hero, don't fight it. Just take a big deep breath in, but that's when you hold your breath. So when you're starting to feel like I need a breath, you go, hold it 10 to 15 seconds, let it out, and then that's one cycle. He says you do 3 cycles of that. So just what I described there, do that 3 times.
Fantastic. And if you don't feel something, then please send Michael back an email at Michael.
This is this could become a whole new business for me.
There you go. Well, it works. We know it works. The science says it works. As in, even sports science, they're using it. So why not give it a go?
Yeah, and I use it as a bit of a reset button. So when you've had that meeting that's gone over time and you're rushing to the next one, and you're just feeling like a little bit frazzled, and you're like, I'm not ready for this meeting. Just slow yourself down. Just do some deep breathing. And I'm talking like 20 to 30 seconds.
Yep.
It all helps. You don't need to follow that formula every time.
Yep.
Just stopping, slowing down and breathing. It's a really great reset button. Have you read a book called The Third Space?
I've heard a talk on the Third Space.
Fraser?
Yeah, I've heard Adam Fraser talk about it and how at a presentation. I haven't read the book.
Yeah. Really cool idea. I know he's done a lot of the conferences, but this concept of our lives are crazier than they've ever been before. And so we're making more transitions from moment to moment than we've ever had to. And so the quality of your life is a function of how well you manage that transition from meeting A to meeting B, or bad meeting to husband, wife, parent, etc. And he gives you a bit of a formula for how you push that reset button. And
put a little bit of space in between those two.
That's exactly.
Or those quick meditations, if you like.
That's it. And that's the third space. It's actually one of the simplest tools that I've used with my clients to help them make better videos is to say to them, do not have anything booked directly after this session. Because just that cognitive load of going, oh gosh, I've got to do these videos and I've got this meeting, and what if I stuff up the videos and then I don't have enough time? And that pressure makes like it there's some type of people who get fuel from that pressure, but most people when they're doing something like video, which is very uncomfortable, it actually really stops them being at their best and just relaxing into it.
Yep.
And so, yeah, the more of that space you can create around your meetings as well, the better.
That's a great suggestion. Yeah, they're having that little third space between all sorts of meetings.
Yes.
Yeah. Now, tell me, 2020, what's everyone going to be focused on, apart from OKRs, of course, which they're all going to start taking up now? What should people be focused on in 2020?
What should people...
Planners.
Yeah, right. Something that I've been playing around with a lot lately, and it's working really well, and I don't think it's something our industry has done particularly well, is before and after data. And obviously you can do that on a financial level, but something that I've been playing around with a lot is more quantitative feeling data. So we are now in an era where the theme of our industry for the next half decade at least is going to be, for a lot of people, this isn't an issue, but for many is, I've never really had to connect to the value of what I'm doing and articulate it to people. How do I do that? How do I explain why they should pay this money to sign up? And I think the more that you can, because, some people just make decisions based on gut and vibe and trust and word of mouth, but there's a lot of people who need the tangible. So I think creating that tangible through, before someone comes in for their first meeting, how are you feeling about how clear you are, how in control you are with your finances, how stress-free you're feeling, et cetera, et cetera. And then measuring that again after you've gone through the first round of implementation or before your review meetings. It's a really interesting conversation to have with your client, but it also means that when you're going to articulate the value to a potential new client, you can go, on average, our clients improve their sense of control over money by 48%. I think it's compelling, but it's also the right conversation to have with clients because you're getting that constant gauge on how they're feeling.
So having some way of just testing the waters to say how you're feeling on a scale of 1 to 10 or whatever it might be.
Yeah.
And how are you feeling after we've helped you with demystifying it or whatever we're going to do.
That's exactly right. So yeah, I think it's not necessarily something that people are sitting there and going, oh, this is going to be the theme of 2020. But I think capturing before and after data helps you at a micro level in having better conversations with your clients, but at a macro level also helps you paint the picture of what the difference is that you make. Because, it's funny, I met yesterday with an IT company, and we were walking to a cafe to have a meeting, and he's like, oh, so tell me about your business. And I told him about the types of people I help. He goes, oh, okay, so they're all people who are selling intangibles. He's like, they don't actually have things to sell, they're just selling intangibles. And I went, such an interesting way of looking at it. A little bit overly skeptical, but at the end of the day, there is a huge amount of what we do for people as trusted voices and guides in their life that's intangible. Same as me as a business coach, same for all the advisors out there. And so anything you can do to go, well, yeah, it's intangible, but that doesn't mean we can't add a layer of tangibility around it.
Yeah, it's not really intangible. It's more transformative or, like moving from one state to another state.
Exactly.
And so, yeah, you're right about the data. If you've got the data to show it, it's not intangible.
Yeah.
But it's only intangible if you don't have the data.
That's so true. It's also that thing though, like, you become we're adaptive beings as humans, and we just become so good at adapting to our surrounds. So I'm sitting here now, lifting the curtain for the listeners. This is before Christmas, but you're going to hear it in January. I'm sitting here now just like, so like, oh my gosh, I've got all these things to do and blah, blah, blah. And I forget how I felt this time last year, but I'm sure if you put me in a time machine, took me to the end of 2018 and said, hey, this is where things are going to be in a year, I'd be like, that's fantastic. And so all the people who've helped me get there along the way, I'd be like, yes, fantastic. But the problem is that you adapt to your new norm and you forget where you've come from. And I think this is part of the challenge that any relationship-based business has, is that their clients they're going, what's next? What's next? What's next? And you've sometimes got to look back and go, well, actually, this year seems like it's been quiet because we haven't invested that much, we haven't done this, but at the start of the year you felt like this and now you're feeling like this. It's been a pretty big year. Like, don't forget where you've come from.
Yeah, and so you constantly got to capture that data where we're up to right now, even though it may not seem significant at the time.
That's exactly right. And, I'm talking simple online survey tools like Typeform.
Yep.
Having a system where that gets sent out and completed before,
Yep.
say, a review meeting or before a first client meeting. But yeah, it's not a huge bridge to cross to get that type of data.
Fantastic. Well, thanks, Michael, for coming back. Hey, see what I did there?
I do.
So let's have you back on it again soon. But to me, this is the OKRs was a great topic to talk about, because people can then go off and do some research, or maybe try and implement it themselves, or get one of their team members to start taking the charge, or they can talk to you about it.
Absolutely. So yeah, look, I firmly believe that if you were motivated and had the right people in your team, you could do this yourself. We'll put in the show notes the link to that book that will let you find Philippe Castro and just go down his rabbit hole. There's so many free resources. Like if you're a DIY kind of person, you will absolutely love his stuff. If you wanted either someone to just do the heavy lifting for you, or you value a fresh perspective in your business who might be able to kind of come up with some different actions in your OKR plan that you would have thought of, I would love to help out. So you can check out my website, www.humantohuman.com.au, or find me on LinkedIn. I usually hang out there quite a lot.
Brilliant. Thank you so much for coming and hanging out.
I'm actually going to hijack the outro.
Oh, where you go.
Because
you do the outro.
It's the second last working day of the year. And
as we record,
I just wanted to give you a Christmas present.
Ah, look at this. Merry Christmas to me.
Now, this is one of those awkward podcast moments where you can't see what's happening, but I've given him a gift, and the envelope says PodGod on the front, which if you didn't know, that's Fraser's nickname.
It actually says hashtag PodGod. Hashtag PodGod.
I think Glenn James came up with that one, didn't he?
Yeah, he did. He started it and other people picked up on it, and I've been trying to get rid of it ever since. And there's a fantastic, wonderful note inside, which I won't read.
Yes. Now, if Fraser's mum is listening, he opened the card before the gift, so he is still a good boy.
Is that a?
Oh yeah, it's just rude to go straight for the present and not open the card.
Oh no, I like.
Yeah, I got smacked for that.
I'll have to get my mum to start listening to the podcast, so she knows I'm still a good boy.
Yeah. Is your mum one of those mums who doesn't really understand what you do?
Of course.
Yeah.
Of course. She asked me how she could watch the podcast the other day, so I went, yeah, fair enough. Oh, lovely, a beautiful quote. Look at that.
It's a Seth Godin quote. I'll read it out because I think Seth has just this beautiful way of helping people realize that even if they're, starting a financial advice business, that is a form of art, and that is like some beautiful vision they have within them that they want to bring to the world. So even though it doesn't sit in a museum or on the wall of an art gallery, it's still art. And yeah, I've given this to a bunch of my clients, but I thought it was very applicable to you this year because I see what you're doing here, and it is your art, and I think the industry really, really appreciates what you're doing.
Well, thank you, Michael. We'll end on the quote, but I just wanted to thank you so much for coming on the show again, and we look forward to having you back again.
Thank you.
Let's end on the quote.
Art is what we call the thing an artist does. It's not the medium or the oil or the price or whether it hangs on a wall or you eat it. What matters, what makes it art, is that the person who made it overcame the resistance, ignored the voice of doubt, and made something worth making, something risky, something human. Art is not in the eye of the beholder, it's in the soul of the artist. Seth Godin.
If you haven't already, I'd love you to subscribe to the podcast on your podcast platform of choice. And to continue the conversation, head over to our social media channels. We'll catch you next time.